Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. The evening air was cool, carrying with it the faint, tantalizing aroma of urban life as I approached the restaurant. I was there to meet Alara, my wife of 5 years. Our marriage was a tapestry of love, laughter, and the occasional disagreement, woven together by the threads of time and shared experiences. Tonight was supposed to be a simple dinner out, a brief escape from the mundane routine of our daily lives. As I pushed open the glass door of the restaurant, the warm, inviting glow inside enveloped me. I checked in at the host stand, where the host, a young man with a bright, welcoming smile, handed me a small device. "It'll buzz when your table is ready, sir," he said, his voice drowned out slightly by the clatter of dishes and the murmur of conversations around us. I thanked him and found a spot near the bar, the buzz of activity around me a comforting background noise. Scanning the room, I noticed that several tables were empty, yet there seemed to be a wait. Understaffed, maybe? I thought to myself. My phone vibrated in my pocket, pulling me from my observations. It was a text from Alara, running late. Caught up with work. Be there soon. I replied with a simple thumbs-up emoji and slipped the phone back into my pocket. As I waited, my gaze wandered over to the bar, where the bartender, a man with deft hands and an easy smile, was skillfully mixing drinks. I considered ordering something but decided against it, not wanting to start without Alara. Just then, I heard a voice that seemed oddly familiar. "Spencer, is that you?" I turned to find Gregory, a face from the past, standing with a woman who had to be Annabelle, his partner. He was slightly taller than I remembered, his hair peppered with gray. "Gregory, it's been ages, hasn't it?" I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, the handshake of a man confident in his own skin. "And this must be Annabelle. We've met before, I believe, at some company event." I continued, extending my hand to her. She had a graceful, almost regal air about her, her handshake soft yet assertive. "That's right, Spencer. It's good to see you again," Annabelle replied, her voice smooth and pleasant. "We didn't expect to run into you here," Gregory chimed in, his tone friendly but with an undercurrent of surprise. "I'm actually waiting for Alara. She got held up at work," I explained, feeling a slight twinge of irritation at the mention of work. It seemed to be consuming more and more of our time lately. Gregory raised an eyebrow slightly. "Alara's your wife, right? She's been working quite late these days. Must be tough." I nodded, the familiar frustration about our limited time together creeping into my voice. "Yeah, it's been hectic, but we try to make the most of the time we do have." Annabelle gave me a sympathetic smile. "It's important to find that balance. Work can be so demanding." As we chatted, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Gregory's presence, once a mere footnote in my life, now felt strangely significant. And then, as if on cue, Alara walked in. She looked hurried yet stunning, her hair slightly tousled from the rush. Her eyes quickly found mine, and for a moment, there was an unspoken conversation between us. She approached, her expression a mix of apology and relief. "Sorry I'm late," she said, her voice tinged with the stress of the day. "You remember Gregory and Annabelle, don't you?" "Of course," I replied, as she joined our impromptu gathering. But as she exchanged pleasantries, I couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected encounter was the prelude to something more, something unforeseen and potentially unsettling. The buzz of the restaurant swirled around us as Alara, Gregory, Annabelle, and I found ourselves in an impromptu reunion. The flickering candlelight from the nearby tables cast a soft glow, giving the scene an almost surreal quality. "So, Spencer, still into your photography?" Gregory's voice cut through my thoughts. He always had a knack for striking up conversation. "Yes, whenever I get the chance," I replied, my mind momentarily drifting to the camera that had been gathering dust on our shelf. "Life's been busy, you know." Annabelle leaned in, her curiosity piqued. "What do you photograph? Landscapes, people?" "A bit of both, but mostly urban landscapes. There's something about the chaos and calm of the city that fascinates me," I said, my enthusiasm for the subject briefly overshadowing the oddness of the situation. Gregory nodded, a hint of admiration in his eyes. "I always admired that about you. Your ability to find beauty in the mundane." Alara, who had been quietly observing the conversation, chimed in, "He has an amazing eye. You should see some of the shots he's captured. They're really something." I could see a flicker of something in Gregory's eyes. Was it respect or something else? "Maybe you could show us some of your work sometime." "I'd love to see it." The conversation shifted to reminiscing about the old days. Gregory and I had crossed paths several times in our younger years. We recalled a particularly memorable event where a mutual friend had thrown a lavish party, the kind where everyone who was anyone in our circle showed up. The night had been filled with the kind of youthful exuberance and optimism that seemed so distant now. Do you remember that night when you almost got into a fight with that guy over some silly argument about football teams? Gregory laughed, the memory apparently a vivid one for him. Alara laughed along, though I noticed her glance was more towards the restaurant's entrance than our group. That sounds like something Spencer would do. I smiled, the memory bringing a mix of embarrassment and nostalgia. Yeah, I was a bit hot-headed back then. Luckily, I've mellowed out since. As we shared stories and laughs, I couldn't help but notice the way Alara occasionally checked her phone. Each time her screen lit up, her eyes darted to it, and a shadow seemed to pass over her face. It was subtle, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was bothering her. Is everything okay, Alara? I finally asked, my voice laced with concern. She looked up, a bit startled, then smiled unconvincingly. Yeah, just work stuff. You know how it is. But I wasn't convinced. There was something in her demeanor that didn't sit right with me. It was like she was there, but not quite present. Her usually sparkling eyes seemed clouded with an unspoken worry. As our conversation continued, I found myself more and more distracted by Alara's behavior. The laughter and chatter around us seemed to fade into the background as my mind raced with questions. What was on her phone that had her so preoccupied? Was it just work, or was there something more? The waiter came by, his interruption a welcome break from my spiraling thoughts. Can I get anyone a drink while you wait for your table? We placed our orders, and as he walked away, I resolved to keep an eye on Alara. Whatever was bothering her, I was determined to get to the bottom of it. But little did I know, the evening was about to take an even more unexpected turn. The evening had taken a turn into the unexpected, with Alara visibly unsettled and the air around us thick with unspoken tension. Our drinks arrived, a brief distraction from the undercurrent of unease. Alara took a small sip of her wine, her hand trembling ever so slightly. So, Alara, Gregory began, his tone casual yet carrying an underlying sharpness. Spencer tells us you've been working late a lot. Big project? Alara glanced at me, a flicker of something like fear crossing her features before she composed herself. Yes, a lot of deadlines. You know how it is, Gregory. The conversation lulled momentarily, the clinking of glasses and low hum of other diners filling the silence. I noticed Alara's gaze darting towards her phone again, her expression tense. Gregory leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly. Must be quite the project. Keeping you at the office so late and all. Alara's response was cut short as a waiter approached our table, but not with the usual demeanor of service. Instead, he handed Gregory a manila envelope. This just arrived for you, sir. Thank you, Gregory said, his eyes not leaving Alara as he accepted the envelope. The envelope's arrival seemed to shift the atmosphere, a sense of foreboding settling over our group. Gregory casually opened it, his expression unreadable. Alara's eyes were fixed on the envelope, her body rigid with apprehension. What's that, Gregory? Annabelle asked, her voice laced with curiosity. Just some documents I've been waiting for, he replied, his attention still on Alara. Gregory pulled out a stack of papers and photos, glancing at them briefly before his gaze returned to Alara. Interesting work you've been doing, Alara. Alara's face paled, her eyes widening in shock. What do you mean? I leaned forward, trying to catch a glimpse of what Gregory was holding. The photos were unclear from my angle, but the tension in the air was palpable. Gregory's voice was calm, but there was a coldness to it that sent a chill down my spine. It seems your late nights at the office weren't exactly what you told Spencer here. Alara's voice was barely a whisper. Gregory, I can explain. I felt a knot form in my stomach, a sense of dread washing over me. Explain what, Alara? What's going on? Gregory handed me the papers, and as I took them, my heart sank. They were photos and detailed reports from a private investigator, clearly showing Alara in compromising situations with someone I didn't recognize. Alara reached out, her hand shaking. Spencer, please, let me explain. It's not what it looks like. I couldn't speak, the shock rendering me mute. My mind raced, trying to process the images before me. The man in the photos with Alara was young, someone I had never seen before. The timestamp showed these weren't old photos, they were recent. Gregory's voice broke through my shock. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Spencer, but I thought you should know. Annabelle, who had been quiet throughout the exchange, finally spoke, her voice filled with empathy but also a hint of disappointment. Alara, how could you do this? Alara's eyes were filled with tears, her voice trembling. It was a mistake. I never meant for any of this to happen. I looked from Alara to Gregory and back to the photos. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, betrayal, confusion, hurt. The woman I loved, the woman I had trusted, had been living a lie. The conversation around us seemed to fade into the background as I struggled to come to terms with the revelation. My world, as I knew it, had been shattered in a matter of moments. The future, once so clear, was now obscured by a fog of uncertainty and heartache. The air was heavy with tension, the revelation hanging over us like a dark cloud. Alara's eyes, brimming with tears, flickered between the incriminating photos and my face, seeking some sign of forgiveness or understanding. But all I felt was a churning mix of betrayal and disbelief. Spencer, please, you have to believe me. It's not what it seems. Alara's voice broke, her words desperate. I looked down at the photos again, each one a hammer blow to my trust. How long, Alara? How long has this been going on? It was just a few times. I was confused. I didn't know how to tell you, she stammered, her hands trembling. Gregory interjected, his tone firm yet not unkind. I think it's best if we give them some space, Annabelle. Let's move to another table. Annabelle nodded, casting a sympathetic glance in my direction before following Gregory to a nearby table. The waiter, sensing the tension, approached cautiously. Is everything all right here? Can I get you anything? No, thank you, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. The waiter retreated, leaving us in an uncomfortable silence. Alara reached out, her hand hovering over mine, but I pulled away, unable to bear the touch of someone who had deceived me so completely. Spencer, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Alara's voice was choked with emotion. Why, Alara? Why him? Why did you have to lie? The questions poured out, each one laden with pain and confusion. Alara's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. I was lost, and he was there. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I felt a cold emptiness settling in my chest, the warmth of our years together being replaced by a frosty void. A mistake? How can you call this a mistake? This was a choice, Alara, a choice you made. The surrounding din of the restaurant seemed to fade, the clinking of glasses and murmur of conversations becoming distant as our private drama unfolded. Alara wiped her tears, trying to compose herself. I know I've made a terrible mistake. I want to make it right. Please, can we go somewhere and talk? I shook my head, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I don't know if there's anything left to talk about. But there is, Spencer. I love you. I never stopped loving you. This was just a terrible error in judgment. I looked into her eyes, searching for the woman I had married, the woman I had thought I knew. But all I saw was a stranger, her face etched with guilt and regret. The reality of the situation was beginning to sink in, the foundation of our relationship crumbling beneath the weight of her betrayal. I stood up, the need to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the restaurant overwhelming. Alara stood as well, reaching out to me. Spencer, please, don't go. We can fix this. I stepped back, my heart heavy with sorrow. I don't know if this can be fixed, Alara. I need some time to think, to process all of this. As I walked away, the sound of Alara's sobbing followed me, a haunting reminder of the love that had been, and the pain that now lay in its place. The restaurant, once a place of warm memories, now felt cold and alien, a stage for the unraveling of a life I had thought was secure. The future, once filled with hope and plans, now loomed uncertain and daunting ahead. I strode through the restaurant, each step a heavy echo of the turmoil inside me. The buzz of conversation and clinking of cutlery around me felt surreal, as if I were moving through a world that no longer made sense. Alara's sobs were a fading echo behind me, a painful reminder of the depth of her betrayal. Reaching the exit, I paused, my hand on the door. A part of me wanted to turn back, to confront her, demand more answers, but what was the point? The truth was laid bare, ugly and shattering. The cool night air hit me as I stepped outside, a stark contrast to the heated emotions that churned within. I walked aimlessly, the city lights a blur through my clouded thoughts. Spencer, wait. Alara's voice cut through the night, her footsteps quick behind me. I stopped, but didn't turn to face her. What is there left to say, Alara? Please, let's just talk. Somewhere private. We can sort this out. Her voice was desperate, pleading. I turned, the hurt clear in my expression. Sort this out? How, Alara? How do we sort out lies and betrayal? Alara reached me, out of breath and tear-streaked. I know I've messed up, horribly, but I can't bear the thought of losing you over this. I'll do anything to make it right. The streetlight cast a harsh light on her face, highlighting the raw emotion there. She looked vulnerable, a stark contrast to the confident woman I thought I knew. Alara, you didn't just mess up. You broke us. How am I supposed to trust you again? Her hand reached for mine, but I pulled away. I don't know, but we can try. We can go to counseling, work through this. I love you, Spencer. That has never changed. The sound of the city faded into the background as we stood there, two figures caught in a moment of profound sadness and confusion. I loved you too, Alara. But love isn't just about feelings. It's about trust, respect. You've shattered both. But people make mistakes, Spencer. Can't we try to move past this? I looked at her, the woman I had shared my life with, and felt a pang of sorrow for what we had lost. Some mistakes are too big, Alara. They change everything. She stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. Isn't our marriage worth fighting for? Haven't we been through enough to at least try? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of our years together, the good and the bad. I don't know if I can get past this. I need time, Alara. Time alone. Please, Spencer. Don't give up on us. Not yet. Her words echoed in my mind as I turned away, the finality of the moment settling in. The path ahead was unclear, shrouded in the fog of betrayal and hurt. But I knew one thing for certain. I needed space to think, to heal. As I walked away, the sound of her crying once again followed me, a bitter soundtrack to the end of a chapter in our lives. The night seemed to close in around me, a fitting backdrop to the uncertainty and darkness that lay ahead. The night around me was a blur, the city's lights streaking past as I walked with no destination in mind. The cool air was a stark contrast to the turmoil that raged within me, a storm of emotions I couldn't quite comprehend. My phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket, messages and calls from Alara, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Each vibration was a reminder of the chasm that had opened up between us, a chasm filled with lies and betrayal. I found myself at a small park, the trees standing like silent sentinels in the night. The bench under an old oak tree seemed inviting, a place to sit and gather my scattered thoughts. The city's distant hum was a soft backdrop to the chaos in my mind. Why did this happen? I murmured to myself, the question echoing in the quiet night. The betrayal felt like a physical wound, deep and throbbing, a wound to my heart and soul. You seem troubled, young man. The voice came from a figure emerging from the shadows, an old man with a kind face and gentle eyes. I looked up, surprised. Just dealing with some personal stuff. He sat down beside me, maintaining a respectful distance. Life can throw some tough curveballs. I nodded, the weight of my situation feeling slightly lighter in the presence of this stranger. Yeah, it can. You ever been betrayed by someone you loved? He sighed, a sound that spoke of experience. More times than I care to remember. But each time, I learned something. I turned to him, my interest piqued despite my despair. And what's that? That pain, as deep as it feels, is also a teacher. It shows us our strength, our capacity to forgive, and sometimes, it shows us the truth we've been avoiding. His words resonated with me, striking a chord deep within. What if the truth is too painful to face? He looked up at the stars, a small smile playing on his lips. Then you face it one day at a time. You let yourself feel the pain, the anger, the sadness. And then, you start to heal. I considered his words, feeling a small flicker of hope amidst the darkness. And what if the relationship is beyond repair? Then you take the lessons it taught you, and you move forward. Life's too short to live in the shadow of regret. I sat there for a while longer, the old man's company surprisingly comforting. Eventually, he stood up, ready to leave. Take care of yourself, young man. And remember, the night is always darkest before the dawn. I watched him walk away, his figure slowly disappearing into the night. His words lingered in my mind, a beacon of wisdom in a sea of confusion. I finally stood up, a sense of resolve beginning to form. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with questions and doubts. But I knew I had to face it, to confront the pain and the betrayal and find my way through it. As I walked back towards the city, the first hints of dawn began to paint the sky. It was a new day, a symbol of the journey ahead. A journey of healing, of self-discovery, and perhaps, one day, of forgiveness. The future was uncertain, a road uncharted and daunting. But I was ready to take the first step, to face whatever lay ahead with a newfound strength and resolve. The story of my life was still being written, and this chapter, as painful as it was just one part of a larger narrative. A narrative of growth, of resilience, and ultimately, of hope.